Our family house stood quietly at the end of Maple Street, old, beautiful, and full of secrets. Its walls had heard every laugh, every fight, and every tear we ever shared. It wasn't just a house. It was our history. My parents built it with their own hands before I was even born. Every corner had a story, and every photo on the wall carried a memory. After our parents passed away, the house became mine and my brother's shared responsibility. At least, that's what I believed. I stayed there, taking care of everything, fixing leaks, paying bills, and keeping it warm and alive. My brother, Daniel, had moved to the city years ago. He rarely visited, except on holidays or family events. When he did, he came dressed in expensive suits and smelled like power. Daniel had always been different. He loved control, money, and the feeling of being the best in the room. I, on the other hand, found peace in silence and the comfort of the home our parents left behind. For years, we had managed to stay polite, distant but peaceful. But deep down, I always sensed something dark in his tone whenever we talked about the house. He would say things like, "You're lucky I let you stay there," or "One day, this house will finally be mine." I used to laugh it off, thinking he was joking, but I should have known better. When the invitation for the family party came, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was the first time in years our entire family would be under the same roof again. I cleaned every room, prepared our parents' favorite dishes, and decorated the living room with old family photos. But as I placed their picture on the table, something inside me whispered, "Tonight, everything will change." The evening sun painted the walls gold, as relatives began arriving one by one. Laughter filled the air, and for a moment, the house felt alive again, just like the old days. The dining table was covered with dishes of roasted chicken, creamy potatoes, and the apple pie my mother used to bake every Christmas. Everyone seemed happy, talking, hugging, and remembering old memories. But beneath the smiles, I felt a strange tension, like the calm before a storm. I kept glancing at the door, waiting for Daniel. He was always late, and he liked to make an entrance. Finally, I heard the loud sound of a car pulling up outside. Moments later, Daniel walked in, wearing a sharp black suit and that same proud smile that never reached his eyes. The chatter in the room softened. He shook hands, hugged a few people, and looked around the house as if inspecting it. "This place hasn't changed much," he said, his tone half amused, half critical. I smiled politely. "Some things aren't meant to change," I replied. He laughed, but there was something cold in that laugh. Throughout the evening, Daniel dominated every conversation. He bragged about his business, his new car, and his success in the city. Everyone praised him, while I stayed busy serving food and making sure everyone felt comfortable. But I noticed something. Daniel's eyes kept drifting to the old family photo on the table, the one with our parents standing proudly in front of this very house. He looked at it for a long time, his jaw tightening. I didn't know it then, but that small look was the beginning of the storm that was about to break. Dinner was going well, or at least it seemed that way on the surface. The sound of clinking glasses and cheerful chatter filled the room, but I could feel Daniel's eyes on me every now and then. There was something in his expression, a mix of pride and impatience, that made my stomach twist. As everyone ate, my aunt began talking about the past. She smiled at me and said, "You've really taken care of this house so well. Your parents would be proud." Before I could even respond, Daniel let out a short laugh. "Well," he said loudly, "that's because she's living in my house now." The room went silent. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. My heart froze. I forced a small smile. "What do you mean by your house, Daniel?" He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the attention. "I mean exactly what I said. I'm the legal owner now. I handled all the property matters months ago. This house is under my name." Whispers spread around the table. My uncle frowned. "Are you serious, Daniel?" Daniel smirked. "Of course. Someone had to take responsibility. I've got the money, the sense, and the power to manage it. She's just been staying here." I felt a rush of heat rise in my chest. "Staying here? Daniel, I've been taking care of this house since." He cut me off sharply. "You've been living off it. There's a difference." Gasps filled the room. My aunt tried to calm him down. Daniel, that's not fair. But he wasn't listening. His voice grew louder, sharper. You all act like she's some kind of saint. She's been sitting here doing nothing while I built everything from scratch. The room fell painfully quiet. I looked at him, my hands trembling slightly. There was so much I want to say, but something in me said to stay silent, to let him dig his own hole. So I just said softly, if that's how you feel, Daniel, then let's talk about it after dinner. He smirked, unaware that his own words had just begun the fire that would burn his pride to ashes. The air in the dining room felt heavy after Daniel's outburst. Everyone tried to return to eating, but the laughter and warmth from earlier had completely vanished. I could feel my relative's eyes shifting between the two of us, waiting for someone to speak again. Daniel, however, seemed to enjoy the silence. He poured himself another glass of wine and leaned back with a smug smile. You know, he said casually, maybe it's time to make things official. I looked up slowly. What do you mean? He smirked. I mean, since this house is mine now, I think it's fair that everyone knows the truth. I don't want people thinking you're the owner. My aunt gasped, Daniel, please. This isn't the time or place. But he ignored her completely. He stood up, his voice rising with every word. Let's not pretend anymore. I've worked hard for everything I have. I paid the lawyers. I sorted the papers. I'm the one who owns this place now. So, if anyone here has a problem with that, they can leave. The room went dead silent. My heart pounded in my chest. I could see the shock on everyone's faces. Then Daniel turned to me, his face twisted with arrogance. And you, he said loudly, pointing right at me, you've been living here for free long enough. It's time you pack your things and got out. The words hit me like a knife. My lips trembled, but I refused to cry. Instead, I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. For a few seconds, I said nothing. Then I looked around the room and quietly said, all right, if that's what you want. Without another word, I walked away. The whole house fell silent behind me. No one knew it yet, but that was the moment Daniel had sealed his own fate. That night, I packed a small bag and left the house without looking back. The cold wind brushed against my face as I walked down the dark street, each step heavier than the last. The sound of Daniel's words, get out, echoed again and again in my head. I stayed with my aunt for a few days. She tried to comfort me, saying Daniel was just drunk and angry, but deep down I knew it wasn't the wine. It was pride. He had wanted this moment for years. Every night, I lay awake thinking about the house, the walls I had painted, the garden I had cared for, the room where my parents' photos still hung. It wasn't just a building. It was my home, their memory, my promise to them, and I wasn't going to let a lie destroy that. One morning, I opened the old metal box where I kept my parents' papers. Inside were faded envelopes, tax receipts, and the original property documents my father had once shown me. My hands trembled as I unfolded them. The title deed still had both our names written clearly, with my signature listed first. I remember my father's voice that day when he handed them to me. This house will always belong to you both, but you must protect it with honesty. A wave of calm washed over me. I realized Daniel hadn't handled anything legally. He had only assumed control, hoping no one would question him. So I started gathering everything, every bill, every maintenance record, every proof that showed I had cared for that home all these years. I even visited the local property office, where a kind clerk helped me confirm that nothing had changed on the official documents. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed, the truth, sealed in paper and ink. And as I looked at the folder in my hands, a quiet smile crossed my face. Daniel thought he had won. He had no idea the game had just begun. 2 weeks passed before I saw Daniel again. During those days, I kept silent, though my phone buzzed with messages from curious relatives. Some wanted gossip. Others quietly supported me. But I didn't answer any of them. I was waiting for the right moment, the moment to let the truth speak for itself. That moment came when my aunt decided to hold a small family gathering at her house. She said it was to clear the air. I agreed to come, and so did Daniel. When I arrived, Everyone was already there. Daniel was laughing loudly, acting as if nothing had happened. He greeted me with a smirk. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. I smiled politely. I wouldn't miss a family meeting. We all sat around the living room. My aunt, trying to keep peace, said, "We're family. We shouldn't fight over a house." Daniel nodded, pretending to agree. "Of course," he said smoothly. "I just want things to be clear. The house is mine and—" Actually, I interrupted gently, reaching into my bag. "That's not true." Everyone looked at me. Daniel's smile faded. I pulled out a brown envelope and placed it on the table. "These are the original ownership papers from our parents," I said calmly. "They never transferred the property. It's still shared equally." Gasps filled the room. My uncle took the documents and examined them carefully. "She's right," he said firmly. "Nothing has changed. Both names are still here." Daniel's face went pale. "That's impossible. I talked to a lawyer." "Then maybe your lawyer lied," I said softly. "Or maybe you just never checked the truth." He stood up, angry and embarrassed. "You're lying." But my aunt raised her hand. "Enough, Daniel. The papers don't lie." Silence filled the room. Daniel's confidence collapsed like a broken wall. His proud posture melted into shame. I looked at him one last time and said, "I never wanted to embarrass you, but you left me no choice. You try to take everything our parents built just to feed your ego." He lowered his head. The man who once shouted, "Get out!" now had nothing to say. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Regret. After that night, Daniel disappeared for a while. No calls, no messages, just silence. The family stopped talking about the argument, though everyone remembered it. The truth had burned too brightly for anyone to forget. I went back to the house. It felt different now. Quieter, lighter. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of my parents' old wooden furniture wrapped around me like a warm hug. I stood in the living room for a long moment, looking at their photo on the wall. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt peaceful. A few days later, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there. His suit was gone. He looked tired, almost fragile. For the first time, his eyes didn't carry arrogance, only guilt. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. I nodded and led him to the same dining table, where everything had fallen apart weeks ago. He didn't sit right away. He just stood there, staring at the chairs, the photos, the walls, like he was seeing them for the first time. Finally, he said, "I was wrong." His voice cracked a little. "I let greed blind me. I thought owning this house would make me powerful, but all I did was lose the people who mattered." I stayed silent, letting his words sink into the quiet air. He looked at me, his eyes wet. "I'm sorry for everything." I sighed, feeling both pain and pity. "You didn't just hurt me, Daniel. You hurt our parents' memory. This house wasn't about ownership. It was about love." He nodded slowly, tears slipping down his face. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix it." For the first time in years, his words felt honest. Maybe forgiveness would come one day, but not yet. Some wounds need time to heal, even when the truth has already set you free. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal. The house stood quietly once again, strong and steady, just like it had always been. The garden bloomed brighter that spring, as if the earth itself was breathing easier after the storm had passed. Daniel began visiting sometimes, not as the proud man he once was, but as a humble brother trying to make things right. He helped with repairs, joined me for dinner, and even brought flowers to place near our parents' photo. The silence between us wasn't cold anymore. It was healing. One evening, we sat together on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and orange. After a long pause, Daniel said quietly, "You are always stronger than me." I smiled faintly. "No, I just never forgot what this house stood for." He nodded, understanding. "Home," he whispered. For the first time, I felt the old bond between us begin to return. Fragile, but real. Maybe we couldn't erase the past, but we could learn from it. Later that night, after he left, I walked through the house alone. My footsteps echoed softly on the wooden floor. I touched the walls, the pictures, the memories. It all felt alive again, not because of the bricks or furniture, but because peace had finally returned. As I looked out the window at the glowing porch light, I whispered to myself, he claimed to own this house once, but I was the one who truly kept it standing. The wind blew gently through the curtains, carrying a quiet warmth through the room, almost like a whisper from my parents saying, "You did the right thing." And I realized then that some battles aren't won by shouting or proving who's stronger. They're won by patience, truth, and the courage to stay kind, even when it hurts.